Swiss franc, or the Swiss franc, excuse me, makes up 3.6% of this index, and the Swiss krone makes up 4.2. So basically, the Swiss currencies, they're making up about almost 8%, 7.8% of the index. So again, they're all under pressure. Now, this type of illustration, the reason I'm doing this is so I can show everybody where the strengths and the weaknesses are inside that US dollar index and how we're going to play this. Now, what I see is further euro strength, further pound strength. I'm on the fence with the Japanese yen, and I'm certainly on the fence with the Canadian dollar because I can believe that could turn around. So with that said, I think it's an interesting way to start the week, to say the least. Now, let's go in and again, looking at this US dollar index, I just want to touch on this one more time. 86.04 is a critical level. We could retrace all the way back up to this level, but that doesn't mean the pressure is off the downside. But what we can do here is we can put in some other indicators to see if we're likely to get a retracement. Now, if I were to do that, what I'll do is I'll pull up a couple of vantage point indicators, specifically the true strength indicator and the predicted MACD. I would also like to put in the medium and the long-term differences. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply them to everything now. So once we go into the presentation, we can break it down a little closer once we've looked at what's going on with those individual currency pairs. Now, looking at the US dollar index, my concern right here, and the reason why I'm talking about a retracement, is the predicted true strength indicator from Vantage Point is in somewhat oversold territory, but we have a cross to the upside. That is always a red flag for me. Over the last several months, you know that that indicator has been a key reversal. Now, in this particular case, I don't think it's a reversal. I think it's going to be a retracement. So we're going to go with that. We've got our predicted medium and long-term differences definitely oversold, as is our predicted MACD. So again, we're likely to see a little bit of US dollar strength potentially to begin the week, but it's likely to be in the form of, again, a retracement. So now we're going to go into our crude contracts. Now, our crude contracts, certainly interesting what's going on, the dynamic that's going on here. Now, for the purposes of this particular thing, looking at light sweet crude, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these indicators back off for a second. Well, before I do that, I'll do a quick rundown on crude on what I see is happening. We've got our predicted medium and long-term differences getting towards the oversold territory. Our triple EMA crossover has not completed. Predicted true strength indicator has made the cross, but we can see that the trigger is stalling at the zero line. And our predicted MACD has made the cross, but it's also still above that zero line. Now, looking at crude contracts, we've got a bit of a range playing here too. We can see that this last, essentially the last couple of months, we've been basically between the 79 and 66 area. Now, I don't see us getting back down to the 66 area, but I can see us getting back down to the 70 level. Now, with that said, what I want to do here is I'm going to go back into our properties, and I'm going to take this off for a second, because the key driver that everybody's talking about in the market this week is what's happening with crude oil and the euro. So let's actually pull this up here for a second so everybody can see this, and we're going to pull this time we're going to use the crude oil contracts, and we're going to put them on the bottom. Now, we're going to use them on the bottom, I should say, to correlate and see how this breaks down. Okay, so we've got our light sweet crude up here. We've got it on the horizontal, sitting along the bottom. Now, what we want to do here is we're going to pull this up specifically against the Euro futures contracts. Now, I can bring it up against the Euro US, but I think it would be better to illustrate it with the actual Euro futures. Now, looking at this, we can see a very unusual dynamic that's happening. This has been a very long time since we've seen anything like this. We can see that there's basically 100% correlation what we've had between the euro and the light sweet crude. The crossover here is crossed to the downside shortly after crude has been slammed lower. Just a horrendous move there, but a good call from Vantage Point. Now, we can see that when it's crossed to the upside, the correlation is essentially 100%, but all of a sudden the light sweet crude moved a little higher, and the euro started moving lower. Now what we're seeing now is we've got a crossover to the upside on the euro and just about a crossover to the downside on light sweet crude. So my position is on this is that one of these two, either the euro futures contracts or the light sweet crude contracts, we're about to see a false break here. So that's why I think the Vantage Point is stalling and it's not giving a clean signal as to what's happening here. But again, we're going to go back to that US dollar index. The way the correlation has been is that when the US dollar moves lower, crude moves higher, and vice versa. That's the way it's been. So this is the first time a lot of players have been gauging the euro currency off of the crude contracts, and that is beginning to break down. But at the same time, I think what we're going to see happen here is, again, a false break. My position is crude is going to stall and start moving higher. So let's have a look at that against it. We've talked about the euro here. Now let's look at the correlation between the light sweet crude and the US dollar index, because it's a very important correlation here that we need to review. Now, putting the two side by side, we can see here that we're actually got the US dollar and light sweet crude moving down at the same time. The only difference here is that the US dollar index triple EMA crossover is complete. It's made its cross, it's made several retracements, and it's been hit hard and it's moved lower, closing at this 84.67 level. Whereas light sweet crude is kind of staying within the same range. We haven't got a clean signal yet on the triple EMA for a confirmed sell yet. My position is it's playing a little bit of a range, and we got a bit of a false break on light sweet crude, and then crude is going to shoot higher, the euro's going to go higher, the CAD's going to go higher. So that's what I'm seeing happening here. Now it's very important to, again, look at all these different markets and try and piece one big one big puzzle together here, because that's really what trading is based around probabilities and what is going to happen, but using multiple markets to come up with the analysis as to which way we want to go with this. So looking at that, again, my position is we've probably got a bit of a false break on the light sweet crude, and the US dollar index is going to continue to move lower after a slight corrective move higher. Now that's an interesting way. I hope everybody understands that okay. It's a somewhat complicated way to look at something. We can see that the triple EMA is just making that cross to the downside. Again, 75.43, we've closed at 72.14. Very likely we're going to get this retracement in these light sweet crude contracts, which will give even more strength to some of the other European currencies, and hopefully some of those commodity currencies can bounce back. Now let's go in and have a look and see what's happening on the other commodity front, which would be, of course, gold. Gold is getting ready for a crossover to the down